Hello, WiserReads family, and welcome back to the channel where we distill the wisdom of the world's most influential books. Today, we're diving into a book that is, without a doubt, one of the most talked about, debated, and analyzed business autobiographies ever written. Donald J. Trump's Trump, The Art of the Deal. Published in 1987, this book is not just a chronological account of a real estate mogul's life. It's a masterclass, or perhaps a cautionary tale, in high-stakes negotiation, self-promotion, and the sheer audacity required to operate on the scale of Manhattan's skyline. At the time of its release, the book spent 48 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list, cementing itself not just as a business manual, but as a cultural touchstone that defined an era of aggressive, maximalist capitalism. But what exactly is the art of the deal? The book outlines a philosophy built on 9 core principles, which we'll be exploring in depth. These principles include thinking big, protecting your downside and preparing for the worst, maximizing your options, and crucially, fighting like hell for what you believe in. Trump, along with his ghostwriter Tony Schwartz, opens the book by walking us through a day in his life, offering a fascinating fly-on-the-wall perspective of how a multi-million-dollar real estate operation runs. Then he pulls back the curtain on some of his most famous and infamous projects. We get the inside story on the revitalization of the Commodore Hotel into the Grand Hyatt, the creation of the iconic Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, and the high-octane battles to secure casino licenses in Atlantic City. These aren't dry case studies. They are narrated as thrilling narratives, filled with unexpected twists, brazen strategies, and shrewd maneuvers against rivals, regulators, and even bankers. While the context of the book is rooted in 1980s real estate, the core psychological insights remain potent, whether you are negotiating a salary, closing a small business deal, or simply trying to understand the motivation behind a certain type of powerful public personality. It's a compelling look at how perception becomes reality, and how controlling the narrative, the hype, can be just as valuable as the assets themselves. Over the course of this video, we'll analyze the most effective and controversial strategies outlined in the book, providing you with actionable takeaways while also maintaining a critical perspective on the overall philosophy presented. We believe that true wisdom comes from engaging with ideas, even those we might disagree with. If you find value in exploring the ideas that shape our world and want to join a community of curious, deep readers, please hit that subscribe button. Your support genuinely helps us bring these deep dives to life every week. Get ready to enter the world of high-stakes negotiations. Let's start with the first principle: think big. Dealing, a week in the life. This opening chapter provides a candid week-long look into Donald Trump's daily routine in 1985, illustrating his high-pressure, non-stop approach to business. Contrary to the image of a CEO rigidly stuck in board meetings, Trump presents himself as a deal-maker and orchestrator, driven by instincts and focused on major strategic moves. His days are dominated by an overwhelming volume of phone calls, often between 50 and 100 a day, which he uses to gather information, test ideas, maintain relationships, and keep his projects moving. He avoids excessive delegation and organizational charts, preferring to run his empire with a small, trusted team and remain personally involved in every key decision, often making calls from his limousine or office. The chapter emphasizes the constant need for momentum and flexibility. Trump describes navigating complex issues like the financing for his Atlantic City casinos, coordinating the opening of a new building, and dealing with political and regulatory hurdles, such as securing the final elements for the St. Moritz hotel sale. It showcases his belief that the real action and control come from remaining in the center of the communication flow, allowing him to immediately capitalize on opportunities or mitigate problems as they arise. It sets the stage for the book's central thesis: success in business is a relentless,
personal and high-energy performance.
Trump cards, the elements of the deal. This chapter acts as the core philosophy of the book, laying out the 9 key principles that guide Trump's approach to every major negotiation and project. These trump cards are presented as essential interlocking rules for success in high-stakes business. Think big. He advocates for setting ambitious goals, as they often take the same amount of effort as small ones. Protect the downside, and the upside will take care of itself. This emphasizes minimizing risk and ensuring you can survive if a deal collapses. Maximize your options. Never commit to just one approach. Keep multiple possibilities open to maintain leverage. Know your market. Success requires an intimate, detailed understanding of what people want and what the competition is offering. Use your leverage. Identify and employ any advantage you possess, whether financial, political, or perceptual. Enhance your location. The perception of a property's value is often as important as its physical location. Get the word out. Utilize publicity, even controversial publicity, to create buzz and drive value, the telling your story component. Fight. Be prepared to be tough, relentless, and unforgiving in a negotiation. Deliver the goods. Ultimately, your reputation rests on your ability to complete projects and follow through on promises. The chapter concludes that the best deal is one where you win, the other side feels they also won, or at least got a fair shake, and the process was so quick and efficient that you can immediately move on to the next one.
Growing up. In Growing Up, Trump details his early life and the strong influence of his father, Fred C. Trump, a highly successful residential builder in the outer boroughs of New York. His father was a disciplined, hard-working, and meticulous developer, known for building large-scale, well-managed, middle-income housing projects. Fred Trump adhered to a strict, conservative financial philosophy: build it right, keep costs low, and never take unnecessary risks. Donald contrasts his own personality, marked by a desire for flair, risk, and massive projects, with his father's cautious, methodical approach. He describes himself as an energetic, aggressive child who occasionally got into trouble, leading his parents to send him to the New York Military Academy, NYMA, at age 13. The military discipline at NYMA, he credits, gave him the direction and focus he needed, honing his competitive spirit. After college, he joined his father's company. While Fred focused on the dependable, regulated world of apartment building, Donald was captivated by the sheer energy and glamour of Manhattan. This chapter marks the pivotal point where Donald decided he wouldn't simply inherit his father's successful model. Instead, he would translate his father's underlying principles of efficiency and quality into the far more complex, higher-stakes arena of luxury real estate in the city center. This decision set the stage for his subsequent groundbreaking deals.
The Cincinnati Kid. Prudence Pays. This chapter details Donald Trump's first major real estate deal that extended beyond his father's traditional focus: the acquisition and sale of an apartment complex in Cincinnati, Ohio, while he was still in his 20s. The property, called Swifton Village, was a large 1,200-unit complex that had been poorly managed and was suffering from financial distress. Trump convinced his father to purchase the complex. They utilized a shrewd strategy. Because the government had provided subsidized financing, they were able to buy it with very little cash down. This move was a pure reflection of the principle of protect the downside, securing favorable financing to minimize risk. Trump and his team then aggressively applied Fred Trump's management principles. They cleaned up the property, hired better security, drastically improved maintenance, and raised rents. Within a year, the complex was turning a profit. When the local real estate market improved, they sold the complex for a substantial profit. The successful turnaround of Swifton Village served as a crucial early lesson for Trump. It proved that his father's disciplined business acumen was transferable and effective regardless of location. More importantly, it showed him the immense leverage that could be created by acquiring distressed assets with low capital outlay, essentially getting a high return with minimal risk, which paved the way for his future mega deals in Manhattan.
The move to Manhattan. The move to Manhattan details Donald Trump's deliberate decision to leave the relative safety and stability of his father's residential real estate empire in the outer boroughs for the high-stakes, glamorous, and political world of Manhattan development. Trump recognized that the real money and prestige were in large-scale, luxury projects in the heart of the city. His father, Fred Trump, was skeptical, viewing Manhattan as overly complicated, expensive, and politically treacherous. Donald, however, saw the potential for monumental deals, celebrity, and the kind of high-profile leverage that could only be found there. His first significant step was to establish his presence, networking aggressively with influential figures like attorney Roy Cohn and various city planners and politicians. He quickly learned that in Manhattan, a deal required not just money and plans, but political maneuvering and perception. The chapter focuses on his initial critical project, the acquisition of the Penn Central Railroad yards on the West Side. This land was a massive, untapped resource, and by securing the air rights, Trump laid the groundwork for his future massive developments, though the deal itself was complex and years from realization. This move was crucial, as it demonstrated his willingness to chase complex, politically charged deals that others avoided, fully embracing the principle of thinking big as his ticket into the Manhattan major leagues.
Grand Hotel, Reviving 42nd Street. This chapter covers the detailed saga of Trump's first major Manhattan triumph, the conversion of the dilapidated Commodore Hotel, located next to Grand Central Terminal, into the Grand Hyatt. The Commodore was a decaying eyesore owned by the bankrupt Penn Central Railroad. Trump saw the opportunity in its prime location and conceived of transforming it into a luxurious, modern hotel. Crucially, the deal required securing massive financial incentives and tax abatements from the struggling New York City government. Trump's strategy was a masterclass in negotiation and leveraging political connections. He successfully argued that only a project of this scale, backed by significant tax relief, could revitalize the blighted 42nd Street area. To fund the redevelopment, he struck a groundbreaking deal with the Hyatt Corporation to operate the hotel, significantly reducing his personal financial risk and allowing him to maintain ownership of the underlying property. The negotiation for the tax abatements was particularly contentious, but Trump's persistence and ability to frame the project as a public good ultimately won the day. The successful renovation, featuring a sleek, modern glass facade covering the old structure, was a dramatic visual statement that announced his arrival as a major player in Manhattan. The project not only delivered a huge profit, but also taught him the vital importance of partnering with the government and utilizing public financing mechanisms to reduce risk and maximize returns.
Trump Tower, the Tiffany location. This chapter focuses on the creation of Trump Tower, a pivotal deal that secured Trump's reputation as a high-end luxury developer in Manhattan. The project involved acquiring the site of the Bonwit Teller flagship store adjacent to the prestigious Tiffany & Co., which established the building's unparalleled location. The deal was complicated, requiring Trump to secure not only the land and the existing long-term lease, but also the air rights from Tiffany's.
His negotiation with the landowners, Equitable Life, was shrewd. He offered them a 50% equity stake in the finished tower, which was far more profitable than the low annual rent they were receiving, thus aligning their interests with his massive vision. To gain city approval for the colossal skyscraper, he utilized the strategy of thinking big by first showing city planners a deliberately unattractive low-rise plan that strictly adhered to zoning rules. When he then presented his spectacular mixed-use tower, complete with a massive, unique atrium, they chose the superior, more visually ambitious option, granting him the necessary variances. Trump emphasized luxury and exclusivity, featuring a $2 million waterfall and marketing the residential units at a premium to cultivate an image of ultimate status. Despite controversy and criticism during construction, the high profile generated by the media attention, which Trump actively fueled, boosted sales, turning the tower into a financial and iconic success.
Gaming, the building on the boardwalk. This chapter covers Trump's strategic entry into the Atlantic City casino business, a move driven by the massive profit potential and prestige associated with the gambling industry. Unlike his competitors who rushed to build, Trump exercised the principle of protect the downside by securing his prime location on the boardwalk first, but waiting to build until he was certain he would receive his gambling license. His primary deal was a partnership with Holiday Inn, the owners of Harrah's, to build a new casino hotel, Harrah's at Trump Plaza. The terms of this partnership were highly advantageous to Trump. Holiday Inn was willing to finance the entire construction, while Trump received half the profits and insulated himself from potential operational losses for the first 5 years. Essentially, he got a major casino built and half owned with minimal financial risk. Trump's approach to construction was aggressive and focused on maintaining control. He famously employed showmanship, sometimes having dump trucks move dirt around the site for the sole purpose of making the construction look as intense and chaotic as possible. This was intended to motivate his partners and signal immense progress. The chapter highlights his realization that owning a high-profile casino was more about the brand and perceived power than merely managing a hotel, positioning him to dominate the Atlantic City market.
Windfall, the battle for Hilton. This chapter details Trump's high-stakes confrontation with Steve Wynn over the acquisition of a large casino project in Atlantic City, showcasing Trump's willingness to engage in aggressive corporate warfare to eliminate or control a major rival. The property in question was the unfinished Hilton Hotel and Casino. Wynn had the property tied up, intending to complete and open it, which would have put him in direct competition with Trump's growing Atlantic City empire. Seeing Wynn as a major threat, Trump used a complex and strategic maneuver to block the deal. Trump discovered that Wynn's deal was contingent on securing a specific critical piece of adjacent land from the company Resorts International. Trump quickly moved in and acquired Resorts International in a swift, leveraged takeover. By controlling Resorts, Trump suddenly controlled the land Wynn needed, effectively stopping Wynn's Hilton deal dead in its tracks. Wynn was forced to abandon the project. Trump then acquired the property himself, showcasing the principle of fighting like hell, not just for profit, but to strategically cripple the competition. This victory demonstrated Trump's ability to use financial and political resources to manipulate the competitive landscape, ultimately expanding his own dominance in the lucrative gambling market by acquiring the asset that became the Trump Castle.
Low rent, high stakes. The showdown on Central Park South.
This chapter recounts one of Trump's most complex and controversial deals, involving a plot of land and a series of rent-controlled apartment buildings bordering Central Park on the highly desirable Central Park South. Trump acquired the property with the intention of tearing down the existing rent-controlled buildings and replacing them with a luxury high-rise. The challenge was removing the hundreds of tenants, many of whom were elderly and protected by strict rent control laws. The deal became a highly visible public relations battle that tested Trump's aggressive negotiating style against fierce community and political opposition. Instead of fighting the tenants in court, Trump used a calculated strategy of financial pressure and psychological warfare. He implemented strict new building rules, halted renovations, and allegedly allowed the building maintenance to deteriorate, creating an unpleasant environment for the residents. Simultaneously, he offered escalating generous buyouts, incentivizing tenants to leave voluntarily. The media coverage was intense, with Trump publicly cast as the villain seeking to displace the vulnerable. However, Trump used the controversy to his advantage, keeping the story, and thus his name, in the headlines. Though he never fully developed the property as initially planned due to the complexity and resistance, the successful removal of most tenants and his profitable sale of the land years later highlighted the book's theme that leverage and a tenacious public fight can often be as powerful as legal maneuvers in the real estate world.
Icecapades, Rebuilding Woolman Rink. This chapter, often cited as a testament to Trump's efficiency contrasted with government bureaucracy, details his successful effort to rebuild the Woolman ice skating rink in Central Park. The rink had been closed for 6 years, as the city government had spent millions and repeatedly failed to complete the necessary renovations due to incompetence, mismanagement, and procedural delays. Trump, frustrated by the ongoing public failure, publicly offered to take over the project and complete it himself for free. After initially being rebuffed, the city, under immense public pressure, finally agreed to let him take charge. Trump applied his core business principles to the public works project. Speed and efficiency. He disregarded the complex, slow bidding process favored by the city and instead hired his own construction management team and used a swift, effective process. Cutting bureaucracy. He streamlined decision-making, taking personal responsibility for all choices, which eliminated the constant second-guessing that plagued the city's efforts. Controlling the narrative. He used the public nature of the failure and his promise to fix it as a tool for positive publicity and leverage. Trump completed the rink in just 4 months for significantly less money than the city had estimated, delivering the project under budget and well ahead of schedule. Then he donated the operational profits back to the city. This project served as a powerful illustration of the book's argument that private sector decisiveness and focus can overcome public sector paralysis.
Why I love what I do. The final section of The Art of the Deal serves as Donald Trump's personal reflection on his career philosophy and the inherent satisfaction he derives from his work. Rather than offering a traditional summary of business lessons, the conclusion emphasizes the joy and adrenaline of the process itself, the game of making a great deal. Trump reiterates that for him, money is not the ultimate goal, but rather a way of keeping score. The real reward lies in the excitement of the chase, the intellectual challenge of putting together a complex transaction, and the inherent thrill of winning against tough odds. He describes the greatest deals as works of art, noting that the act of creating something magnificent like Trump Tower or the revitalization of the Grand Hyatt is deeply rewarding. He concludes by defining his work not just as business, but as a total way of life, driven by energy, focus, and a relentless pursuit of the next challenge.
The book ends on a highly confident note, stressing that he loves what he does because he is a builder who thrives on overcoming seemingly insurmountable obstacles, proving that his aggressive and highly personalized approach to business is the key to his happiness and success.
As we wrap up our deep dive into Trump, The Art of the Deal, what is the enduring takeaway from this controversial yet undeniably influential book? Ultimately, this is more than a book about real estate. It is a masterclass in the psychology of negotiation, branding, and high-stakes maneuvering. It lays bare a philosophy where perception is reality, and the ability to control the narrative, to generate what Trump calls hype, is as crucial as securing the best financial terms. We saw this in action with the Grand Hyatt and Trump Tower, where the sheer audacity of the vision created value that went beyond the brick and mortar. The 9 Trump cards we explored, from thinking big to fighting like hell, provide a framework for aggressive, decisive action. The book argues that indecision is the enemy of success, and that the best deals are often those that others are too timid, too slow, or too conventional to pursue. But the book also provides critical lessons in risk management. Trump's consistent focus on protecting the downside, as demonstrated in his Swifton Village and Atlantic City deals, is perhaps the most practical and applicable lesson for any business person. It's the idea that while you must think big, your primary focus should always be structuring the deal so that the worst-case scenario is survivable. The goal is to set the stage where the upside takes care of itself once the risk is contained. The story of the Woolman Rink also stands out as a powerful case study in operational efficiency, showing the vast difference between the private and public sector approaches to project management. It highlights the power of a single, focused decision-maker to cut through bureaucracy and deliver results quickly and efficiently. The biggest lesson from The Art of the Deal is that the real joy, as Trump concludes, is in the game itself. It's in the adrenaline of the chase, the intellectual challenge, and the satisfaction of building something lasting. Whether you agree with the tactics or not, the book forces you to confront the reality that success often requires a level of unwavering focus and commitment that few are willing to sustain. This book is a portrait of a specific kind of American ambition, bold, relentless, and unapologetically public. It's essential reading for anyone who wants to understand the intersection of business, media, and power. Thank you so much for joining us on this WiserReads journey. We believe that truly understanding the world means engaging with all the ideas that shape it. If you're someone who's hungry for knowledge and ready to challenge your own thinking, please join our community by hitting that subscribe button. Let's keep reading and growing wiser together. See you in the next video.